Hello, everyone. Um, so for my research project, I wanted to study conflict narrative alignment and romantic relationship satisfaction and how the two connected. Um, Essentially, at the heart of this study is just a profound curiosity on how couples manage conflict. Um, yeah, just a little background on the study and what informed my desire to create this is eventually I want to go on and become a therapist, and I really want to work with couples. Uh, Child of divorce at a young age. I've been really curious about, why relationships work and don't work. And I think when I met my partner initially, she was the first relationship I was in where conflict started to be this point of strength and resilience, whereas before it was something I avoided because I thought, it ended relationships. But the truth is conflict's going to be in all our relationships. And so it's foundational to learn how to navigate these things. Fortunately for me, though, I am profoundly curious about the process of this and how it works. It brings me joy to figure these things out. And I know that's not the case for most people. And so I'm hoping that, by studying in this and shining a light on it, it destigmatizes conflict and makes conflict management more accessible for couples. Um, yeah. So again, we're all going to face conflict in our romantic relationships. And, the body of research I found shows couples are happier when they're successful at navigating conflict. And a big a big tool is having communication skills in doing that. However, one point of conflict that's common is communication. So I thought, one of the foundational pieces of remedying this problem is looking at how couples communicate. Um, but I wanted to first turn to the individual and how they process and communicate to themselves um, how the conflict is born. So this led me to this field of study called narrative identity. This is a field in psychology that essentially explains how people construct like internal narratives of their own lives. And so, this will look at things like how an individual perceives something happening in their life. For instance, there's two people, and both people are going for a job they really want, and both people don't get the job. Person A don't get the job, and the internal narrative is this always happens. I knew this was going to happen. I'm not good enough for this job. This is always going to happen. I'm never going to find a job. Person B, same thing happens. Internal narrative. Oh, it's okay. I wasn't really jiving with the interviewer. There's going to be better jobs out there. This probably wasn't the right one for me. I'm looking forward to more opportunities. And so it's less about, what's happening and more about how people form meaning around what happens. This is at the core of narrative identity. And so more recently, this field has expanded to study romantic relationships and how couples create meaning and structure narratives around their own relationships. And a lot of the studies in this field have looked at couples together. And one researcher highlighted, the need for more research to exist on studying individuals separately from their partners to see how they construct narratives around romantic relationships. And another point that hasn't been studied was narrative alignment and what is the impact and significance of having, being in alignment with your partner, and how does that impact the relationship. And so taking those ideas, I wanted to study how conflict narrative alignment and how that impacted relationship satisfaction. So what I ended up doing is I recruited 2 couples, so 4 people total, and I interviewed each member of the couple separately. And what I had them do was beforehand decide on 2 conflicts they've had, and then I would interview them about the same conflict separately. And so way I designed this was I had open-ended questions, and this was kind of informed by narrative inquiry. And I just really wanted to give participants the opportunity to really have the space to share this internal process of the conflict, rather than like what actually happened, is it fixed or not, just more of like, what's your perception, how do you hold this, how do you perceive it? And so narrative inquiry was great for that. And then I also had a survey that measured relationship satisfaction. This is a scale I created that was very much informed by another relationship satisfaction scale that's popularly used in studies like this. And so, yeah, what I ended up doing was interviewing these couples, and then I was going to code the interviews for narrative alignment. And so I asked them the same 10 questions per conflict, and then I went back over each question and just literally went through their answers and see how much each answer aligned or not. And then based on that, I gave them a score on alignment. And I had the relationship satisfaction scale as well. That one was pretty straightforward. I used SurveyMonkey and got the results there. And so what I ended up finding was both couples scored high in alignment with their partners, and they also scored high in relationship satisfaction. So I right away saw this correlation between the two. And one thing that I think I overlooked, or that just was more prevalent when I was doing the coding process, was the impact of how couples viewed the conflict, like their attitudes towards it. I think going in, I was really focused on like just the alignment and not really thinking about, is it important if you have a how the attitudes of the alignment, how the attitude connects with the alignment. And so one thing I found with these couples is they had similar narratives of positive perceptions around their conflict. And so they saw each of these conflicts as, proof that their relationship was working and strong. And, for some of the conflicts identified, they saw these as lifelong processes. So not necessarily something that is just going to be resolved. And the literature really backed that up, these positive perceptions, and that being connected with relationship satisfaction. One study I found through the narrative identity lens that looked at individuals, going back to the example of the people, not getting the job, they call this redemptive narratives, where you would have a perceived struggle or hardship, but you would see it through this lens of like a redemptive arc. Even though this happened, we were able to rise up, and it turned into a positive thing. And so both of these couples displayed this redemptive narrative in their relationship, where each time they had a conflict, it created this opportunity, and they were able to seize that opportunity and come together and be even stronger. Yeah, another thing that came up that I didn't think about beforehand, that just was evident in the coding process, was the role of gender roles. So both of the couples I interviewed were heterosexual, and both women in the study vocalized their desire and need for their male counterparts to vocalize their emotions more. And so this looked like, verbal affirmation or initiating conflict was a big one. And so one thing that was common for both couples was you'd have your initial conflict that could be about whatever, and then you'd have this additional layer of conflict where the women would be upset that they're not knowing what's going on with their partners, because they're not verbal right away to communicate. And so it creates this anxiety of what's happening, what's going on. And with one of the women specifically, this was a reoccurring problem where she told her partner, I'm tired of always having to bring up the conflict. You need to bring this up. And male counterpart, took this advice, and as soon as he was able to, he started bringing up conflict to her, and that really helped them start to work conflict more successfully. And the literature really confirmed that. In one study, I found that women were more likely to be the people who engage and bring up conflict more frequently in relationship, whereas men would be more avoidant. However, men, when they did engage in conflict, were found to engage in what was called positive problem solving, a style of conflict management. And positive problem solving was one of the most common and effective ways to manage conflict successfully. And so with both these couples, you can see as soon as they're able to A, engage in the conflict, and B, start working out how to resolve it, they manage it really quick. And so there was a lot of points, during these conflicts where what created this tension was not engaging in the conflict, and not coming up with positive solutions, not blaming, instead really trying to hear each other and figure things out. And how gender played into that I saw was, based off gender role and conditioning, this fatigue, potentially by women having to be like these gatekeepers of the emotional aspects of their relationship. And what I found was it wasn't this, oh, men and women are different and men aren't good at this. As soon as they receive this feedback from their partner, hey, I'd appreciate if you could do this, and they did it, it helped the relationship tremendously. And so, at least in these examples, it just shows that these roles in our relationship don't need to be gendered, even if they start out that way, and that everyone in the relationship has capacity to grow and change. And that's part of managing conflict, is having this perception that it's going to be a process. So yeah, just kind of summing all that up, like I really found like this correlation between alignment and relationship satisfaction. But I think that, alignment is not the end all be all. I think it's one of the first steps for couples to really get on the same page. And then, it's also really important our attitudes towards these things. So just because there is conflict doesn't mean, you won't figure it out or it's a bad thing. Like, this is to be expected. And so I think future research can explore more of this connection between our attitudes and perceptions of conflict, and how those align, and how people craft, why do people craft positive perceptions and why do some people don't? I think that would be a really good place for future research. So yeah, thank you very much for watching.